More than 300 people have been killed in Kerala's landslides. 200 people are still missing. Rescue operations continue to intensify, with the armed forces working around the clock to look for survivors and provide some sort of connectivity in the area. The army has constructed a Bailey bridge in double quick time, with the Navy and the Air Force continuing to airdrop provisions to people in distress and winch up those who are trapped. There have been miraculous stories of survival after so many days. 4 people were rescued today dramatically by the armed forces, but it's ensuring some sort of basic connectivity in the area which has been completely wiped out, which continues to be a real focus. I'm joined now by Sunita Narayan, who's been tracking all of the developments very, very closely. Sunita, it's been a couple of days since the disaster. It's really not over because, there are still lives out there and so many, who are still missing. But from a preliminary standpoint, is there any one reason which was directly responsible, in a sense, for the large number of lives which were lost?
Vishnu, I don't think there is any one reason that you can pinpoint. The fact is, we are now in an age of climate change. This is a high-risk time. On your screens itself, you can see that there has been a cloudburst in Himachal Pradesh where people have died. We know Kedarnath, Uttarakhand yesterday and this last week have had similar tragic deaths. And of course, what we saw in Kerala is heart-wrenching. I mean, there is absolutely nothing that you can see for the images that you see and the deaths that we know have occurred. The clear reason is that on one hand, we are mismanaging our environment. There is willful mismanagement of our environment. And this, if it had been okay in an earlier time, is completely un-okay today, because we are living in an age of climate change where we will see more extreme rain events. We will see more and more intensity and frequency of extreme weather. And in this high-risk time of climate change, let's be very clear, Vishnu, we can't afford to keep doing the kind of willful mismanagement that we have of our environment. I do not know whether in Wayanad, what was the reason, but I do know that over the Western Ghats, the fact is this is an ecologically fragile area. It is prone to landslides, which means more protection for the Western Ghats. More forests have to be protected. More efforts have to be made so that when we build keeping in mind the ecological fragility of the region.
In fact, that's my next question. Constructions. It's rampant. Nobody seems to care. Bylaws exist only on a piece of paper. They're never monitored.
I can't hear you, Vishnu.
Can you hear me now?
Vishnu, can't hear you.
All right, we'll come back to you in just a moment, but I'm just going to go across to these shots of what happened earlier on today. A Bailey bridge been constructed by the army. I believe we can go back to Sunita. Sunita, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you know, absolutely.
So, no,
but
you use the word building, and I just want to ask you about building norms. They just exist on a piece of paper, not just here in Wayanad, but across the country. Rampant construction of buildings in areas which are ecologically sensitive, how is that a prime cause for the large number of deaths?
So we don't know in the case of Wayanad, and please don't put words in my mouth. We do not know enough. We do know it's an ecologically fragile area where more protection will be needed in an age of climate change. As far as buildings are concerned, there is a Western Ghat notification, and you will be shocked to know, Vishnu, that this notification has the 5th draft notification was issued in 2022. A final notification for the Western Ghats has still not been issued. Under this notification, a large area of the Western Ghats would have been declared as ecologically sensitive. And as far as buildings are concerned, there would have been added checks on the buildings that were built in these regions in terms of size. But the bottom line, Vishnu, is that we have dismantled our environmental clearance systems. We have dismantled our systems to take careful decisions to balance environment and development. And all this, as I keep saying, would have been okay. I mean, fine, we do what we do. But today, in an age of climate change, it just is not okay. The IMD has just released data to tell us how a very heavy rainfall has increased 4 times, doubled, in fact, in the last 5 years. Now, this means that every time it rains, you're going to see a huge downpour. And this is what we saw in Wayanad. In the place where the landslide started, in 24 hours, you saw over 200 millimeters of rainfall. Ecologically fragile area, already weak. You see this battering of rain and you get a landslide. And look at the images you have.
No, it's crazy, these images. It's tragic. But I think the point is, this is one tragedy which has taken place amidst so many which could take place. When we talk about climate change, we are seeing an increasing frequency of cyclones, a greater intensity of cyclones. We are seeing greater glacial melt. We are seeing landslides taking place. And, torrential rainfall in so many areas and droughts simultaneously in other parts of our country. These are quantifiable, right? This is climate change, the worst of what we read about 10 years ago, which is now upon us, right?
Absolutely, Vishnu. The fact is, it is climate change. We put together this annual state of extreme weather event report every year. And that shows that India has almost one extreme weather event a day across some region of the country or the other. But the point I also want to make, Vishnu, is that we should not just call it climate change, because if you call it climate change, there's a sort of fatalistic kind of approach to the whole thing to say, it's climate change, what can we do?
It's upon us and we can do nothing. Yeah, no, exactly.
And
that's exactly the wrong attitude to have.
And that's exactly why I'm fighting this narrative, because when it rains too much in Delhi and you get the kind of floods that you saw just a few days ago, it's not just because of the extreme rain, which will happen because of climate change. That tips us over. The fact is, we are destroying our drainage system, destroying our lakes, destroying our forests, building where we should not, doing roads in ways that we are destroying more and more of the fragile ecosystems. This is what we have. This is man-made, Vishnu.
No, absolutely.
Do not let
Okay, Sunita, I'm interrupting you now because we've got my colleague Pratibha who joins us from one of the worst hit areas. In fact, Pratibha, we've got the signal with you. Tell us where you are now. Give us an idea of the rescue efforts now. And the loss of life.
Well, in fact, the rescue efforts have just about closed for the day, because we are talking of the lights not being there, and it would again resume tomorrow morning. But the bridge, in fact, has definitely been one of the most advantageous things that has happened as far as the rescue and relief efforts is concerned, because we are talking of the bridge that has provided accessibility to many of the far-flung areas, isolated sections where people have remained stranded there. You can see the rescue officials just completing their search operation there and heading back, and would be resuming operation again tomorrow. But we are talking of something that has happened, and it's been 4 days, and there is still hope among many of these rescue officials, telling me each time that we will be able to find some survivors there and we will continue this operation. On one hand, you have the thermal scanners that are being used to detect survivors. On the other, we have dog squads that are being used to sniff out cadavers, and earth-moving equipment that have been able to cross the bridge over and remove all the silt as well as the mud to find out if there are any kind of bodies that can be discovered, because many of them, remember, are lying deep underneath, at least to the depth of around 12 feet that we are talking of. So it is definitely going to be a Herculean task before this search operation really ends, and it is definitely going to take several days before normalcy returns at Wayanad.